Way back in 2015, I had a crazy idea to put on a hackathon to build 48 nonprofit websites in 48 hours. I quickly grabbed Adam Walker to co-found what would be called 48 in 48. And over the last 6 years, the organization has built well over 800 nonprofit websites and rallied thousands of volunteers worldwide. On this episode, I decided to grab a handful of the most dedicated team members and volunteers who have been a part of 48 in 48 from the beginning to share some of the crazier stories of our little nonprofit startup. Let's get into it. Okay, this is a super exciting episode of the podcast because I've got a whole bunch of the old timers with 48 and 48 joining me today.
Easy on the old timer thing.
Some of them are old beyond their years because of 48 and 48. No, you all look super young and fresh. So here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get some of the original team, the OG, and talk about some of the old stories from, it could be stories from anything, but you guys have the best stories as we've all been on this journey together. So why don't we go around and I will ask you to say, who you are, how you got looped into this thing, maybe what you do with the org right now. And then almost all of us, Aaron is always the contrarian. We're almost all wearing 48 shirts, so you can talk about where your shirt came from. So let's start with Adam, because that's where all this started. So once upon a time, Adam, I called you. I remember where I was. I was on the deck in my backyard, and I called you with this crazy idea. What made you say yes?
Well, you're hard to say no to, Jeff. I mean, I think by now you probably know that, right? So, no, I mean, you called me up and we were sort of like, we had this sort of budding, friendship that was like, we're just starting and you asked and I'm like, man, of course I'm going to help with this. This is amazing. I mean, not only is it an amazing idea, but you're a great person to be around. Right. And so I'm like, it's a win-win. And so I just assumed that I was signing up to be like volunteer number one, kind of like being at the start of something. And then we had our first group meeting and you're like, and this is my co-founder, Adam. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. That works out really well. And then, everything went forward from there. And I certainly took on quite a few responsibilities, especially that first event, just where it all happened. So it was pretty fantastic. And I'm very thankful on a very regular basis that I said yes.
And now you do a whole bunch of things for the organization. You're on the board. Which shirt are you wearing?
I've got the shirt on from the most recent event that has all the people on Zoom, even though we weren't technically on Zoom, but it looks more like a Zoom than anything else, I think. And the last event was pretty fantastic. The global event, 16 time zones. It was amazing.
Yep, that's right. All right. So I assume because you were a part of it from day one, Aaron was a part of it from day one. Is that right, Aaron?
I had no choice either. So, yeah, I mean, I think it probably, Adam comes around saying, hey, I met this guy named Jeff and he has this idea. And I'm like, that sounds impossible. I don't want to do it, but if you think it's possible, then maybe, so, and we just started thinking, how can this be done? And we met with a couple different people, trying to figure out what kind of platform can we use, to get this done. And it was, we did it. I don't know. There wasn't that much time in between, like when you two were talking and when you had the first event. So, I mean, you guys don't waste time.
Yeah, we moved very, very quickly. Who was next? Who was in that first event? Most of you, I think.
Swanee was there. Sima was there, I think for sure. Brett was there, even though we're looping him in. Carole was there.
You were there first event for sure. All right, let's start with Carole. How'd you get looped into this thing?
So I was living in Miami at the time when I got a call from the two of you guys said that you were starting this sort of nonprofit idea. And so that was, I guess, the 2015 event. So I came and visited up from Miami that weekend, and I think I worked the registration table that day, and really throughout the weekend. So loved it, loved the atmosphere, and when you guys said you wanted to make it sort of a formalized nonprofit, and by the next year, then I couldn't say no to moving back home and working with you guys and seeing what we could do.
And your shirt is?
So this is less of an event-related shirt. I think it was more of for individual donors when we did that maybe in 19 or something like that. So anybody who made a donation got this shirt. It says a social entrepreneur underneath it.
Yeah. All right, great. And Steve, you've got the same shirt on, so why don't you go next?
Yeah, similar story. I call it FOJ, Friends of Jeff. So the FOJ club gets cranking about a month before the event. And I don't know, I either got a text or an email like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? And we're doing this thing at Ponce and it'll be super cool. I'm like, okay, so the magnetic force of Jeff cannot be resisted. So you kind of, you don't know what you're doing. You just jump into it. So I was at the first event at Ponce whatever, what was it? It's, you know what I'm talking about. This shirt is, again, it's Joe Kaufman, another FOJ, who is selling these at the event at Dragon Army at your building. So I've been, my connection to the organization is whatever Jeff, Adam, or Sima tell me what to do. So I was part of last weekend's Super Service, global event, because Sima told me to. So that's
Nice.
it.
Yes, we all now do pretty much what Sima tells us to. So
Right.
why don't we bounce over to Sima? Tell us how you originally got looped into this.
So I was working for a company called BKV at the time, and they were one of your first sponsors in the group. So Mary Beth Varner, Janet Ferguson walked into my office and said, hey, Sima, so we've decided to sponsor this thing called 4848, and we just need you to make sure the right people from our organization end up over there. Build the teams, figure it out, because it's web stuff and web stuff. That was like my whole intro into 4848. So it sort of became a part of my work effort and a part of just support. For the first weekend, it was, I think my team showed up, a build team showed up, and they rang me on the phone and said, so Sima, this is a really, really cool thing, but they need more program structure and more process stuff. So they really need you to get more involved with it. And that's how I sort of got involved in it. And then after that, it was Carole's fault, because Carole was like, well, Sima, can you do this? And I was like, yeah, I could do that. Sima, can you do this? Yes, Carole, I could do that too. And here we are.
And here we are. And now you're the executive director, and you tell us all what to do.
And Sima, you brought your Uber driver to the event, as I recall, too. I mean,
I
right?
did. I introduced you guys to my Uber driver, and sometimes I have a tendency to say things that are not completely true, and I just see how long they'll go before someone figures this out. And no one figured out that John was not my Uber driver until the end of the event, when my Uber driver decided to come give me a hug after Carole gave me an amazing award. So yeah, that's my funny story for sure, because I think a couple of you people, walked up to me after and said, "He's not really your Uber driver, is he, Sima?"
Nice.
And then we changed him over to a Lyft driver, but I don't know, Uber driver just seems to stick,
Well, before we pass it to John, your shirt.
So my shirt's 2017, I believe, 2017 event. I decided to bring back an oldie because I knew that everybody else would do the current new ones. So It's Our Code was when we were running with It's Our Code.
I think I have the new version. Basically, after 5 years, we did a similar take. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, John, you're up, and you've got one of the classic shirts on.
Yeah, actually, I have the last pre-COVID shirt. So this was from the Super Service event in Miami in January, just before all of the COVID shutdown. So it was the last on-site live event, and it's been an interesting journey for me. As you know from the earlier discussion, I was the Uber driver for Sima. Not really, but taking her back and forth to that very first event. And of course, then I got sucked into the next event as, hey, we need some more people to help volunteer and do some things. So I participated in that event. since then, I've been following her around everywhere to all the different events that we've, every new city we launched, London, Boston, New York, going to all those different events. And I'm probably the most unofficial official volunteer that we have.
I think that's probably true. All right. And last but certainly not least, Emily, how did you get tricked into being a part of this thing?
Well, it's kind of Sima and Carole's fault, but before I actually met them, so Marty, who's also an old timer, he's not on the call with us today, but him and I worked together, and he had talked to me about it. He's like, "Oh, you should come be a project manager. You would love it. It'd be so fun." And it was in October, and the weather here in Bloomington was kind of crummy, and I'm like, "Yeah, let's go to Atlanta. The weather will be nice. It'll be a fun little trip." And so I went like 5 years ago. I came down for a weekend and I met Sima and I met Carole and just got hooked. And before I knew it, Carole is like, "Hey, do you want to like help with the Boston event?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" And then 5 years later, here I am as one of the program directors. So basically doing what Sima tells me.
Yeah.
I'm on that group too.
And your shirt?
So my shirt is from 2018. It's probably not the best one to show just because like the detail, but it's actually pretty cool. This is from our Bloomington event. So my hometown, so I thought I'd rock the hometown shirt today.
I love it. All right, let's tell some stories. First, I wanted to see, does anybody have stories from that first year, the first event?
I've got your favorite story from the first event, unless you're going to tell that one.
Go for it.
Yeah. So that first year, we actually did get like a wee bit of news coverage, which was, just almost nothing. And I think there was like this 30-second blurb that ran on a local news channel at like 11 o'clock at night or some like weird hour. And like not long after that at all, this guy just strolls up into the event and he's like, "Hey, I'm here to volunteer. I just saw this on the news. I want to be a part of it. I'm a programmer." And we're like, "Wait, I'm sorry. You just saw this on where? And what? And who are you?" And sure enough, I think his name was Clint, if I'm not mistaken, or something to that effect. And he came in and he just like knocked everybody's socks off all weekend, did a ton of stuff. I think he's been at every Atlanta event since then, if I'm not mistaken. I think I see him pretty much every year, and he's always like just blowing through work, doing all kinds of great stuff. He was a really great guy, and real thankful to have him that first year, especially.
Yeah. That was huge. You showed up like that Saturday night, right? And then worked all night and helped like 10 sites get done. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah. He's a key player in that first event to help us get across the finish line for sure.
I think the reason why Sima is such an integral part of this event, Adam, if you'll remember when we launched or started Friday night, there was a whiteboard at General Assembly with a bunch of nonprofits. And you basically said, "Okay, guys, just grab a couple and go." And it was the most chaotic. Do you remember that, Adam? It's like, what?
I remember that vividly.
I'm like going, what? How are we doing this? And I'm not even a project manager. And I'm like, wow. I mean, it was like a bunch of little kids going after like a bag of candy. And then there's like the remnants of a couple sitting up there and they're like, "Oh." And then I think you took like 3 or 4, like, "Well, okay, I'll take the orphans and I'll knock them out." Right?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Yeah, I mean, I felt like it was organized, but I think my version of organized and most people's version of organized probably are not aligned. So
we're getting some head nods on that one.
I think your description is
No
probably
way,
pretty
Adam.
accurate.
No.
Anything else from that first event, Steve? I remember you and I being baristas for half of that event.
Who dropped off the coffee, Jeff, and the barista?
Wasn't it Land of a Thousand Hills? I think they've supported the coffee that year, if I'm not mistaken.
Year one? Yeah, I have no idea.
I can't remember. They entrusted us with about 50 pounds of beans, a good grinder, a weigh station, and 2 kettles to make pour-overs. So, I'm functionally a PM on a team, which means functionally in name only. So I thought what would be my gift? I'm a coffee guy. So I'll just make just a ton of coffee all day, all night. Jeff would kind of hang out. We'd make coffee together. And I don't know. I think we made, I don't know how much, just a ton. Because back then people slept. Didn't you guys sleep that night?
We slept there. Oh yeah, we slept there that first. And Steve, I'll tell you this: I do a pour over every morning now, and every morning I actually think of you in that first event doing the Chemex pour over. Like every single morning,
it was awesome.
I think of Steve Swanson because of that.
Awesome, yeah. So I do remember my great value add in this whole technology landscape is making coffee, and you can't diminish the importance of making coffee.
It's super important. Carole, what about you? What are some of the things that you remember from the crazy days?
Are we doing first event still?
No, let's open it up.
I mean, I have a couple favorite memories, but I loved the early tradition of you and Adam running barefoot in whatever city we were in, including the grimy Brooklyn Bridge in New York City. So
yes!
I mean, when I was thinking about that was the ultimate one. We had the whole group, like all of us walking around the city, and you guys just really.
I would also say Aaron also ran barefoot halfway across that bridge as well. So the three of us went barefoot across the bridge.
That I did. I was going to sue 48 and 48. I got a splinter, and no. It was a little cold, but it wasn't that bad, to be able to be out there. We just we went to halfway point, right? We didn't read the whole, okay.
Yeah, we were halfway was good.
Yeah.
I think I remember when we ran in Boston, I think it was like pouring like crazy when we did that one time. We were like, well, we have to do it. It's a tradition.
I'm glad I wasn't involved in that. So.
Yeah. All right, who else? Sima, John, what do you guys got?
Do you want to go first, or?
No, go ahead, Uber driver.
All right, so sort of going back to what Steve said, Steve made coffee at one event, and in the London event, we had a massive box of things that was supposed to show up that didn't show up. And we had a note that it was at the UPS office, which was quite a few train stations away and a big Uber truck drive back, because it was a box that was just massive. So we couldn't get it into a regular Uber car. We had to actually get one of those sort of van type Ubers to take it back. So that was fun. It was interesting. It was a little different. But my favorite part of that trip was not that. It was actually when Carole and Sima and I went up to the rumpus room at the top of the hotel where we were staying.
I knew you were going to say that one.
And we were all wearing I think it was similar color shirt to what you have on right now, Carole. We had these light blue t-shirts on. And we walk into this bar, and everybody is dressed to the nines. I mean, you have a view of the Thames River out of the window. We're on the 14th floor of this hotel right on the Thames. And we're all up there in our 48 and 48 t-shirts. And everybody kind of staring at us, wondering what in the world we're doing. And then we found out later there was this little kind of 3x6 box in the back of the room that had a door on it with a little heart. And we kept seeing people go in there, like 2 people at a time would go into this room. And they'd be in there for like 3 or 4 minutes, and then they'd come out and all smiles and everything. And we're like, what in the world is this room? So we finally got the nerve to go in there, and it turned out to be a photo booth. It was the coolest photo booth in the world with mirrors on all the walls, and it was really, really neat. But anyway, that was my favorite story.
Yeah, I think somebody said that we looked like protesters walking into this nightclub in our matching t-shirts.
Yeah, because everyone was wearing black, and everyone was just gorgeous. And here we were, and all we wanted was a drink. Like, we were so exhausted at the end of the night, we were just going to the bar for a drink. And I think had we not been actually staying in that hotel, they probably would have turned us away and said, no, you can't come in. But that was hilarious. One of my favorite memories is the year 2 event when we did Atlanta and New York. So that was the first time I met Eric Henderson, Adam. He cracked me up every day, like all day long. He would just say things that were absolutely hilarious. And if anybody knows Eric, I'm vertically challenged compared to Eric. So I literally would make it to his armpit. The top of my head made it to his armpit. And he would follow me around everywhere. And I would talk to teams, and he'd say, whatever she said. And we'd go to the next one, whatever she said. And it was the most comedic thing because he had this little name badge on, and it said something like, "When I grow up, I want to be," and he put Sima on it. It's just like this whole weekend we went through things like that, and so people would find Eric, and then sure enough, I'd be there, close near him, because you could see Eric's head above everybody else, and I was so short that you couldn't see me. So it kind of became a joke to where it's like, we just look for Eric and you'll find Sima, like should be right there.
Eric's hilarious. Carole, do you remember how rude the person working at the New York place was that first year we went?
Oh yes, yeah, they were strict on the rules.
It was staggering how rude she was. We're just putting on this nonprofit event. She was like not having it. Thankfully, I think she was only there maybe that first Friday night.
Yeah.
If I remember.
So then we can just let loose after that. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Eric was the one who knew how to take advantage of the city that we were in, though. You know, I mean, he really was able to like do the breweries and the musicals, and while the rest of us are at the event till what, 2:00 in the morning.
Now, speaking of taking advantage of the city, so there was one time that Daniel Roberts, a mutual friend of a lot of ours, went to New York with us. I think it might have been the first time in New York, and Daniel's like, "Listen, guys, I got the best place to eat in New York. You just got to follow me. Just trust me." So a bunch of us went. I know Aaron was there, and just followed him. And it turned out that we ended up at the Halal Guy's food truck in New York. And he's like, "Oh man, get this and get this and get this." And then we go over to the sauces. He's like, "Man, this red sauce is really good. Just go ahead and, put a bunch of that on there." Well, it turned out the red sauce, I believe, was habanero sauce. And so we all started eating it and just dying. I mean, I've never been in such pain. It was horrible.
On, we got food first. I don't know why we didn't have drinks. Yeah, so we're sitting there eating this stuff, and I can eat stuff that's spicy. Like, I enjoy stuff that's spicy, but this stuff, I mean, I put it all over there because that's all he talked about the whole way there, And so I'm putting it on there, eating it. Oh my goodness!
And then Aaron, didn't you go like run to a Starbucks and buy milk to survive?
My wife calls me. He's like, "How's the event going?" And I'm like, I'm just like, I'm falling apart. And I go in there and I just grab whatever dairy looking product and open it up, without paying for it to drink it. And the guy's looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm sure I look like I was like dying.
It was,
but yeah,
fantastic.
I forgot about that.
Thank you, Daniel.
Oh.
Emily, what about you?
I think my favorite or most memorable event was, I think it was the second year in Boston. And I'm sorry, Jeff and Adam, I'm gonna kind of embarrass you guys.
I was hoping you'd tell this story.
It was when we decided to put the boys and the girls against each other. So it was me and Sima, Carole, and it was against you guys. And it was the Boston, like, out of the box or something like that, with all like the clues, and you had to answer the questions.
Escape the box.
I will have to admit, to this day, that was like, what, 4 years ago? To this day, my screensaver on my phone is still the picture of you guys bowing down to us. Like, I can't change it.
Well, don't you have a shoe or something that represents this?
Yeah.
I do. Don't worry, I brought it.
Yeah, we printed that picture on a shoe and gave it to you. But there's one other part to that story that I think is kind of fantastic that I know Jeff will appreciate. So Jeff's son had wanted to join the boys team. And we were like, "Oh, no, we need, the grown-ups got this. We got that." We kind of like marginalized him a little bit. And we got stuck. The main reason we got stuck on this final clue. It was a riddle, and none of us could figure it out. And then at the end, we showed it to Jeff's son, and literally within 2 seconds, he just rattled off. He's like, "Oh, it's a whatever." And it was
fire.
Yeah.
Fire.
But you did, I do remember, and I will have to give you guys credit, you did get the girls back, because you did beat Carole. Was it last October in Atlanta, the bags game? I still have the video of you two jumping up and down and like excited that you won. So right now it's guys won, girls won. So the next event is going to be the tiebreaker.
I don't know though. That dance sort of set them up again. That set him back again. You were up, and then that dance just.
We got minus points for that. What about was it year 2 that we did the post office, or year 3? 3?
Pretty sure it's 3. Everything
what
was
I
so-
love about that year was, we're putting on an event where in Atlanta, probably year 3, we had over 200 people coming to it. And we had a venue, and on Monday, the event starts Friday. We usually lock the venue in 3 months at least ahead of time. On the Monday of the same week, we find out, oh no, in fact, you can't use this venue. And we won't go into why that happened. But then we had to find a new place to host an event for 200 plus people that could stay all night. Like that was always one of the harder things, is from a security perspective. And Adam, I think you happened to be at the event where we were going to have the first one, and you met somebody who was starting this new co-working space.
Well, not just met some. No, I ran into an old high school class that I had not seen since 1999 at the venue where we were supposed to have this event. I ran into her at an event there, and we connected. And then turned out we needed a space, and I knew she had told me about this co-working space. So I immediately asked her, and she's like, "Oh yeah, come, just do it right here, no problem." It was
and if I remember correctly too, you were at that event again. There was an event that was happening that week at a hotel that we were going to piggyback onto and have our event there. And you just luckily found out that they were like, "No, you're not on our list." You're like, if that hadn't happened, we would have showed up Friday.
It was Ethan.
Ethan found out?
Yes, he was doing something. He was scouting or something, and somebody said, like, "You're not on the schedule. Like, what are you talking about? You're not on this. No, it ends. We're done." And I think the post office, keep me honest here, Adam and others, like they weren't fully operational yet. So like we were running extension cords 100 feet all over the place. There was, I don't want to sound like it was third world, but
well, the floors were sticky, remember? Because they had just pulled up the carpet and hadn't finished finishing the floors.
Yes, I do.
Everybody remembers the sticky floors from that event.
Yes.
And the no AC on this.
Oh yeah.
No AC. And they were filming Ant-Man and Wasp outside during the event, which was crazy as well.
There are a few things happening outside that are probably not appropriate for.
Yes,
I know, Carole. I know what you're talking about. Not appropriate, Carole.
That's a certain area of town, yeah. But that was the same event where I love to kind of compare between the different cities, just the cultures of, volunteers and whatnot. We talk about how like competitive the New York volunteers are. Like they're just so hardcore, and they're going to do whatever it takes to win the, social media post, So I love that about them. But then you compare it to Atlanta, where at post office, they literally brought their own TV and screen and projector so that they could have like a full-on tailgate during 48 and 48.
Oh, I remember that. A couple people did that. I do remember that very well. Yes.
Yes, well, yeah, that was your group, I think, wasn't it?
Now I think it was Raj's.
I'm pretty sure that was Brightwave.
Yeah, we have to mention Brightwave.
Yeah.
We invited Brightwave to be a part of it. It was immediately they set up like an entire like bar. And
correct.
Just people going in for drinks. My memory is we really hadn't allowed alcohol before. We didn't ban it, but we didn't provide it. And ever since then, it was like, all right, we'll have Sweetwater, we'll have whatever. It was Raj and Brightwave just broke that wide open.
Yeah, and then I started finding beer. Second Self helped us a couple times in Atlanta, and then Ponysaurus in Raleigh. It was my daughter's birthday or something like that, and I told Carole, like, "Oh, I'm in Raleigh, I'll just come by." And we got in covered, like, and I know somebody who owns a brewery. You want some beer? Yeah, that'd be good. So I think one of the themes about this call and all of what we do in 48 is it's your classic, if you want something done, ask a busy person. Just ask a busy person and things will happen. And a lot of the things that will happen also, it happens on its own timetable. I know it probably drives Sima and Carole probably nuts, but it happens when it sort of happens. It all comes together at the end. It may be a little ugly in the interim, but it all comes together at the end. But you give what you can give. So
that's right. That's right. Any other stories and memories?
I got one of Carole. I don't know why. Every time I think about this, it just cracks me up. It makes me laugh. But we were in Bloomington. We were in the Bloomington event, and we were at this old Mitsubishi plant, which was super cool because we got to have like stuff around all of the machines and all this stuff. It was really neat. And it was like Saturday night or something. And she was turning a corner, and I was walking the same way, and all of a sudden I see her, and she's like pumping her arms, like super dramatic, like this. And I mean, I literally almost lost, like I lost it. I could not stop laughing, and I don't know why it was so funny, but it was like perfect timing. And like my boss was like maybe 6 feet away, and he was coming up to talk to me, and I couldn't say a word to him. I was like, I'm sorry, I need a minute, but it just made me laugh so hard.
Super professional over here.
Very professional. Yeah. Yes.
I don't even remember that, actually. That's so funny.
It was on the second floor. I just remember it perfectly.
Must have been like par for the course, I guess.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, the only other thing I could remember is really my own experience with traveling to the different cities. I would get Airbnbs to save a little bit of money or stay with people. And so one of the Airbnbs, Addie, you probably remember the story, but it was just across, we were in Union Park in New York City. And literally my Airbnb was just on the other side of the park, but still Adam and I think Brett walked me over there, and because it was, midnight or later. And so I get to the Airbnb, so it's, late. And I get up there, I'm exhausted, and I walk into this Airbnb for the first time, and it smells so bad to where I'm like, I have to open all the windows, and next thing you know, I see these like bright eyes in the corner of the Airbnb. I'm like, what is that? The Airbnb had their rabbit in there. And not only was the rabbit there, but like the hay or grass or whatever they lay on was all over the apartment, mostly under the bed, to where I'm sleeping on top of like the rabbit's bed, bathroom, all of that. So it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, Adam, I got to go. Actually, I think I tried to sleep for like 30 minutes, tried to shower. It was just like, everything was gross. I'm like, I have to go over to, I think it was the Walker Hotel. So, because I remember that. So like 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm like trekking over. No, wait, I think I ended up staying there that night.
It was the next night you got a hotel. Yeah.
So I just
so
veered through it, I guess, that first night, but that was an experience.
I still think back to Minneapolis, which was, let's just say, a challenging event. And, we ended up just not getting enough volunteers. We still had a ton of websites to build. So we took a bunch of volunteers with us to Minneapolis. And actually that turned out to be pretty fun. All of us just like, it was like this ninja team building like, how many sites? I think it was like 15 or 17 sites with just our one team built that one weekend. You remember, Aaron, how many sites it was offhand?
I think it was 21.
Oh yeah. I think you're right.
21
I think it was 21
sites.
Yeah.
And yeah, we brought basically I don't know how many people from Atlanta, at
it was
least
like
five
there
or
were about
six.
5 or 6 people from Atlanta, because that to supplement, and then that team built like 21 of the sites that weekend. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think I actually ended up getting sick that weekend too, if I recall correctly too.
I think a lot of us got sick after these events. But there were definitely stories of Herculean efforts by everybody, certainly on this, but like groups of people. I think that happened in London, first event in London, didn't it?
Yeah, in London, I think we started off with thinking we were going to have a little over 100 volunteers. And by the end of the drop ad period, which it seems we ended up closer to 70 volunteers or something, really tight, because we had 40 plus sites to build, and not all of them were UK sites, but we had backfilled them with the US sites. And then to the rescue was Vito and his team, who came in initially, picked up 2 sites, had them done, helped everybody. And then I think there was a contest between Vito's team and one other team. I want to think it's Red Badger, Carole. I don't remember who the other team was, but there were 2 teams. And Vito's team ended up taking the prize at building like 14 websites over the weekend. And then the other team ended up building like 12 or 10 or 12 sites, right? So it was a huge effort, and for them it was easy. And then in the middle of that, they were still helping out the other volunteers that were there, who were all, had just decided to band together and build websites. So And lucky for us, Vito's still hanging on there. I mean, we didn't chase him away year 1. And year 3, he's still coming back, and he's coming back with new solutions and things for us. He's just amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he is amazing.
I remember at that event, I built 2 myself because our team ended up being 2 teams combined with 6 sites to do. And they were struggling to get through the 4, and I had to pick up the other 2 and just do them myself while we were all working on those. So it was a big team effort across the whole, everybody was there. I think it was actually 120 volunteers that I'd signed up and only 70 that actually came there. So it was a big delta between what we were expecting and then what we had to pull off. But we did quite a number of sites. We must have done close to the 40, wasn't it 40 something sites we did that?
We did close to 40 sites.
It was
Yeah.
like 45,
with 70
something
people.
like that.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing. Yeah. And speaking of getting sick or that kind of thing, I didn't get sick before. I mean, I didn't get sick after one of the events, but just before the last New York event that we went to, Sima and I were walking. You can't see it here, but in the background down here on the ground, there's the pathway over to a Target. And we were walking, and all of a sudden she saw me just fly through the air. Like, yeah, exactly, like Superman, except it really wasn't, because I just went straight into the asphalt and landed on both elbows. And I didn't think I was going to make it to the event because, I mean, it was bad. I mean, I hit my knees and my elbows, and I didn't have anything protecting my elbows, so I wasn't wearing a long sleeve shirt or anything. I just went straight into the asphalt. And it was, I mean, Sima can attest to the fact that it was pretty bad. And but I made it, and we did the event anyway. So.
Man, I blocked that out.
There was a big old rod or something in the walkway, and it turned a bit dark, and so he literally tripped over it. And I just really remember just watching him kind of go flying across. And it was the funniest thing, because like I wish I had a phone camera to like record it, because it was hilarious. But then he actually fell because he didn't continue to fly, and I was like, oh goodness, he's really hurt. So I went on to Target to go pick up medical supplies, and he went back to the townhouse, which was hilarious. And then it was like, all right, well, we're going to patch you up, and then if you can't go, it'll be okay. But he's just an amazing healer. So there you go. 2 days later, he's on a plane like nothing happened.
Nice. I remember the first event, and look, there's a bunch of people we could have had on this. Certainly, Gina is one of those people. She did so many amazing things for this organization. And that the first year, we did this for a couple of years, right, Carole, where we would have 4-hour slots where people would come and bring some food or something and then help volunteer. I think we eventually stopped doing that as much, but we used to have people come bring refreshments or snacks or something. And it was either Friday or Saturday night of that first event. Adam and I were working the front desk overnight, which meant we were sleeping behind the front desk overnight. And we didn't realize, but the building locked. Pond City Market locked. And so Gina drove like an hour from her house. I want to say from the 2 to 6 a.m. slot. So she gets there at 2 a.m. with a bunch of donuts and is like knocking and calling and anything she can do, and nobody's answering because we're asleep at the wheel. And sure enough, she goes home. She has to drive all the way back home, but then she comes back the next year and signed up immediately to make sure that she got in the next year, which was just makes my heart melt. It was so amazing, but I felt so terrible when we found that out. We were crashed behind the front desk, not doing our job. Terrible.
The other thing that I think about too is like we've had a bunch of kids, come and help. Like my kids have come and helped. Jeff, your kids have come and helped. Aaron, your kids have come. Sima, you brought your kids, I think, to Boston, if I'm not mistaken. Like that's been, Emily's brought her kids on trips with her, and everything else, which has been great. And then, and of course, like we've had a bunch of college interns too come and facilitate and help with teams and really make a huge impact. So I really kind of love that aspect of it as well.
Yeah. Any final stories?
I think one of my just favorite things overall from 48 and 48 is like, I really appreciate that, we're not just going to these events together and working the whole time. Like I have a lot of really great memories with a lot of the 48 and 48 team of like trying something new in a new city. Like the first time I went to Boston, I remember I was with Gina and then my friend Mike, who drove with me. we walked around Harvard. Like, I would have never thought about ever going to Harvard, if it wasn't for that. Or, going on the roller coasters at Mall of America with Carole, which, by the way, she's scared of heights and didn't tell me until after we were all the way up.
That roller coaster was epic.
That was super fun. But having her next to me, like, I'm scared of heights, oh no, like, that was really fun. But just like having that opportunity just to hang out with everybody, because we do so much work together and a lot of it's virtual, even before quarantine, just because you guys are all in Atlanta and I'm in Bloomington. So just going to events and being able to like have like, some team bonding and to try different things in these big cities is just so much fun. Definitely have a ton of great memories doing that with you guys.
That reminds me of the State Farm video that we did when we were at post office. And I don't know why it sticks out to me, but Emily said, it's just really family. It just said it with so much sincerity, and it was just, but it's so true. But I listen, that one part just like sticks out to me, and I love that.
That was so cheesy. Oh my gosh. That was fun though.
Perfect. It's perfect, Emily.
But I think that has really become the core of what 4848 is, that everybody comes to volunteer, and we have a lot of repeat volunteers, and you really do become like this 4848 family, right? Like, I think for me, it's like every time we do an event in a new city or in the same city the next year, you're just sort of going to a little family reunion, because you're going to meet people you already met last year. And even if that's the only time you interact with them, it's still great and just kind of keeps you coming back for the next event. So I know that I say it a lot by, thanking everybody at the end of events or beginning, and just letting them know that they're officially a part of the 4848 family, right? You got a shirt, you're a part of the family now. So I do think that there's a lot to that. It's more than just work. It's more than the goodness of the hearts and people giving back. It's just these relationships that we're building that are now even virtual, but we're still building them virtually. And I think that that's fantastic. And I don't know of another organization that I'm involved with that is that close. But then I am biased.
Yeah, I think it just connects with our human nature to connect with others. I mean, if you think about the basis of using technology to help others, it is a very human organization and operates on human principles, which is interesting for a tech sort of play. So I think that is 100% correct, Sima.
Virtual hugs, everybody.
Hug it up, everybody.
There you go.
Well, that's a great thing to. Does anybody have anything? John, you got something?
I had one more thing I was going to say. Speaking of the human element of this, I went to randomly to this lunch and learn at I think it was back in 2018, and I knew that I was going to be running into somebody that I used to work with in the past, and so I got there and she was there, and we hadn't seen each other in, I don't know, 10 years, because we worked together and then gone to different companies. And I was sitting there telling her, catching up on what I was doing, and I said, and by the way, I volunteer with this group called 48 and 48 that builds websites for nonprofits. She goes, stop right there. She said, I just had my website built by them last year. So she has a nonprofit that helps young African American women, and she just had her site built at that point by 48 and 48. So that was cool. It was really neat to see the impact that 48 and 48 has, and to be that close, where randomly running into somebody that's had the benefit of this effort that everybody's put in. So
I have an old friend that teaches, I can't remember which grade, but we hadn't been keeping in touch, but one of the kids was talking about a 48 and 48 event that she had gone to that past weekend, as like part of what she was, show and tell or whatever it was. And then that teacher looked it up and found that I was a part of it and reached out. And the kid apparently just loved it. And I have no idea who that was, but yeah, there's always stories when you're out and about, especially in Atlanta, and you see people with a 48 shirt. It's really kind of a fun thing. Okay. We couldn't do it without you guys. That was really fun. I think family is the right hashtag for this. I think, when you're doing good and you're doing it with a bunch of other people, those bonds get formed. So we will get back to in-person events again. I don't know how soon, but we will definitely, that's definitely part of our future. But it's interesting to be able to do this virtually. And we actually on the global event had some people talking about how they felt closer to some of their teammates now because they were able to do this virtually through 48. So I think that's really interesting. But you guys are the best. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being a part of this. And we'll do this every 5 years. What do you think?
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Great plan.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
All right,
Jeff.
everybody.
Thanks,
Great to
Jeff.
see all of you.
Hey,
Yeah.
Oh, good to see you.
hey, Jeff.
Bye,
Now that you're,
Carole.
if you're done recording, there is one story that I thought I would mention that would not be good for your recording.
Well, I'm going to keep it recording and I'll decide. How about that?
So there was
Does this involve
was-
me? Because I
no,
hope
no,
not.
no, no, no.
Okay,
no.
good.
There was one trip, and it was me and Jeff and Carole were on it, and there were two things that happened on this trip that I just were so amazing and like classic Jeff. So Jeff, I don't know if anybody would know, Jeff's really fun to travel with. Like for whatever reason, there's just like this kid side of Jeff that comes out in traveling. And so we're traveling, and one thing on the way to the hotel, Jeff was just 1,000% convinced the hotel was going to have amazing cookies. And he's like, guys, Adam, Carole, I'm telling you, these cookies are going to be so great. I can't wait to get to the front desk and get these cookies. And he's just all about the cookies. And of course we get there and we're at the front desk and we ask, and of course there's no cookies. But he had made such a big deal out of it that somehow we convinced the hotel to give us cookies. Instead of like, look, just go to your rooms and then come back down and we'll give you a plate of cookies. So we go up to our rooms and, get settled in, and Jeff and I are sharing a room, and then Carole's got a room. And so we get back down and we meet up in the lobby, and then we meet in the lobby, and Carole goes, oh, well, how's the room? And Jeff, without even hesitating, goes, it's great. We have a whole bed for all our stuff. I just died. I died laughing. And then sure enough, we go to the restaurant and they give us this huge plate. I swear there must have been 10 or 15 cookies of all different kinds on the plate. And they just gave them to us for free because Jeff had made this huge deal out of getting the cookies at the hotel. I don't know. It was amazing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's a classic travel with Jeff story. It's fantastic. So
They were delicious.
I think we only ate half of them. There were so many. I mean, it's unreal.
Are you talking about, was that when we went to, what
I think
city
it was Boston.
I thought it was Boston. I think it was Boston. Yeah.
Where
that? One
we
of
had,
the, that was where it was one of the earlier trips that the three of us went on, and
It was
we
late
had rented a car.
Yeah, it was late and we were all tired, and I can still remember the look on Jeff's face, like, how's the room? It's great. We have a whole bed for all our stuff.
hey, we're close on these trips, man. What can I say?
Family.
Family.
Emily, love it.
Oh, so good.
All right.
So.
That was a good one to end on. It's staying in. People are going to hear it.
All right. Fair enough.
All right, you guys.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.